If you stopped a person on the streets of Warsaw today and asked them, "What are you?" most would give the same answer. "I'm Polish. I'm Slavic." And they'd be telling the truth. But not the whole truth. Because if you went deeper, past the language, past the surname, past the borders drawn and redrawn across 1,000 years of war, if you went all the way down to the molecule, you'd find something that nobody taught in school. The blood running through Polish veins carries the memory of Gothic warriors who arrived from Scandinavia, of Roman-era tribes who vanished so completely from history that we barely remember their names, of Viking traders who sailed the Vistula and stayed, of a mysterious mass migration, entire families, not just soldiers, that replaced over 80% of the local gene pool in just 2 centuries. And buried beneath all of that, mothers, women whose maternal lines haven't changed since the Ice Age. This is the hidden DNA of Poland, and it's not as Slavic as you think. Around 11,000 years ago, the ice retreated. People followed it north into the forests of what is now Poland. These Western hunter-gatherers are still the most visible ancient layer in the modern Polish genome, more so than in the British Isles or Western Europe. Poland is one of the strongest reservoirs of Mesolithic European ancestry on the continent. They almost certainly had blue or grey eyes and darker skin than we might expect. Light skin in Europe is not ancient. It spread largely through migration, not in-place selection. These were not the faces we imagine when we picture the deep past of this land. 7,000 years ago, Anatolian farmers spread into Europe. In the south, they replaced the hunter-gatherers almost completely. In Poland, they did not. Ancient DNA shows unadmixed hunter-gatherers persisting here until 4,300 BC, centuries after farming had already transformed the rest of the continent. The Neolithic transition in Poland was a slow negotiation. Around 3000 BC, a third wave arrived from the Pontic-Caspian steppe, the Yamnaya and their successors, the corded ware people. They brought cattle, horses, and the ancestor of the Indo-European languages. Poland received this wave, but compared to much of Central Europe, the steppe signal here remained relatively moderate. The older layers held on. The full genome of a modern Pole carries all 3 of these components: hunter-gatherer, Anatolian farmer, steppe pastoralist, in proportions that are distinctly Polish. Everything that follows, the Goths, the Slavs, the Vikings, is written on top of this foundation. Long before anyone spoke Polish, the land between the Oder and the Vistula belonged to a completely different people. For over 1,000 years, from roughly 200 BC to 500 AD, this territory was Gothic country. When scientists extracted Y-chromosome DNA from Wilbach burial sites at Kowalewko and Masłomęcz, the results were unambiguous. 78% of male individuals carried haplogroup Y1, a lineage closely associated with Scandinavia, nearly absent from Central Europe before the Germanic migrations. Their genome-wide ancestry clustered not with modern Poles or Czechs, but with present-day Swedes and Danes. Poland, in the early centuries AD, was genetically Scandinavian territory. Then everything collapsed. The Huns arrived, and the Germanic world fractured. The Goths moved toward the Black Sea. The Vandals crossed the Rhine and kept going, ending up in North Africa. The Wilbach culture dissolved. Archaeological surveys show a dramatic collapse in settlement density in the late 5th and early 6th centuries. Cemeteries went silent. Poland became briefly a ghost country. And into that silence, someone else was already moving. In September 2025, the journal Nature published the most comprehensive ancient DNA study of the Slavic migration ever conducted. 555 ancient individuals, 26 sites across Central and Eastern Europe. The conclusion was unambiguous. Large-scale population movement from Eastern Europe during the 6th to 8th centuries replaced more than 80% of the local gene pool in Poland, Eastern Germany, and Croatia. 80%. Not influenced, not gradually blended. Replaced. And it wasn't a warrior band taking local wives. There was no sex bias in the migration. The genetic signal was identical through both the paternal and maternal line. Entire families had moved, communities, children. Where did they come from? The origin point. A band stretching from southern Belarus to central Ukraine, the Pripyat marshes. The Slavic homeland that linguists and archaeologists had debated for a century now had a DNA timestamp. These people hadn't diverged over centuries. They had left a shared homeland within living memory. The most unexpected finding wasn't about ancestry. Before the Slavic arrival, burial sites showed loosely connected, heterogeneous genealogies. After it, large, tightly organized patrilineal clans, multi-generational male lineages buried together, women marrying in from outside. The Slavic migration didn't just replace the gene pool, it replaced the entire social operating system. Approximately 60% of modern Polish males carry R1a branches that expanded during this event. But R1a itself predates the Slavs. It was already present in Bronze Age Baltic populations. What the migration did was reorganize and amplify specific branches of a lineage that already existed. It looked like an explosion because it was one. 80% is not 100%. 2 Y-chromosomal lineages found in modern Poland appear to be uniquely Polish. Almost nowhere else in Europe, their most recent common ancestors dated by molecular clock to the Roman Iron Age. One is a branch of the classic Gothic-era haplogroup. The other is a Western European lineage confined almost entirely to this territory. These are not Slavic lineages. They are fossils, living genetic fossils of the people who were here when the Vandals still ruled the Vistula. Some of the Goths never left. They stayed, learned the new language, took Slavic names, and their Y chromosomes have been quietly passed down for 1,500 years. An Old English poem called Widsith, one of the oldest surviving texts in the Germanic tradition, mentions the Goths who remained in the Vistula woods. The Byzantine historian Procopius recorded Vandals absorbed by Slavs. These weren't legends. The DNA is finding their echo. Between the 9th and 12th centuries, Varangian traders navigating Poland's rivers left Norse Y DNA at burial sites along the route from the Baltic to Byzantium. They settled. They stayed. The DNA doesn't forget, even when the communities are gone. 80% replacement, no sex bias. Whole families moved. And yet mitochondrial DNA, the maternal line, tells a story that sits in tension with that number. Not in contradiction, in tension. The maternal haplogroup distributions visible in Roman Iron Age sites across Poland look broadly similar to those of medieval and modern Poles. Haplogroup H, the most common maternal lineage in Western Eurasia, was dominant then as now. U5, one of Europe's oldest lineages, was present, so were J and T. But here is the key. These are not uniquely pre-Slavic markers. They are pan-European markers. Both the incoming Slavic women and the surviving local women carried largely the same maternal haplogroups, because the entire population of Western Eurasia had been drawing from the same broad pool of mitochondrial lineages since the Neolithic. Mitochondrial DNA at this resolution cannot tell you whether a woman's ancestors were Gothic, Slavic, or something older. What changed was everything harder to see. Language, social structure, the Y-chromosome pool, the full autosomal genome, shifted dramatically toward an Eastern European source. But the broad maternal categories, shared across most of Western Eurasia, remained stable, because they were never uniquely local to begin with. The depth of those maternal lineages, whether carried by Slavic women arriving from the Pripyat marshes or by Gothic women who never left, connects every modern Pole to a human presence in this landscape, far older than any political identity. So what exactly is Polish DNA? It is a palimpsest, a manuscript written over and over, each author adding their chapter while traces of the older ones remain visible beneath the ink. Roughly 60% of Polish male lineages belong to Slavic expansion branches of R1a, young, rapidly expanding, arriving in the 6th through 8th centuries. Another significant share falls within haplogroup I, some the surviving remnant of the Gothic world, some Viking era, some reaching back to Mesolithic hunter-gatherers who walked this land before agriculture existed. There is no single answer to the question of what Poles are, genetically speaking. There is only a sequence of answers, each one true for a different century, a different lineage, a different direction of descent. The Goths came and vanished, except for the 2 quiet haplogroups that never left, still present in the DNA of modern Polish men who have no idea their Y-chromosome once belonged to a Gothic warrior buried with Scandinavian brooches near the Amber Coast. The Slavs arrived in an event so rapid and so total that it left a visible wall in the genomic record, before and after, clearly delineated. Yet they too arrived carrying older layers within them. The Vikings traded and stayed. The Jewish communities flourished for 8 centuries and left their mark in the genome even as they were destroyed. And through it all, the maternal lineages, carried by incoming Slavic women and surviving pre-Slavic women alike, connected each generation to a human presence in this landscape, older than any of the identities written over it. If you took a DNA test today and found Polish ancestry, you are carrying all of this, not as metaphor, as molecule. The past doesn't disappear, it just goes quiet. And sometimes, a century of genetics later, it speaks again. If this is your kind of history, subscribe and turn on the bell. There's a full playlist in the description covering Italy, Portugal, and Spain. Same method, different stories. Leave a comment if something surprised you. See you in the next one.